that you purchase in the store. And because turkey is so very lean, there's not a lot of fat in it, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of just a neutral canola or vegetable oil because you need that moisture. You've got to have some fat in the turkey. And I buy the extra lean ground turkey. I have in this little bowl just about 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper just for a little bit of heat, and then some fresh nutmeg, which I always grind myself. I don't like the pre-grated nutmeg. So you want about 1/8 of a teaspoon because nutmeg is very strong, but it adds that warm flavor, that toasted flavor to the sausage. So there you go. That's all you need. These little things you find in the spice section and they keep forever. We're going to add about 1 teaspoon of salt and about 1/2 teaspoon or so of ground black pepper. Just getting all this in before I start chopping. Now, we're going to add some almonds to our turkey, and I've got about 4 ounces of just sliced almonds that I'm going to pulverize. I'm going to turn it into kind of like a meal with my little small food processor. Let me get this up here so it's clear. Just kind of grind it. It's a little loud, so bear with me. I pulse it. And I'll show you the consistency that we want. I think that's probably good. Now, let me show you the consistency. Be careful whenever you use a chopper because that little blade is very, very sharp. You see how fine those are? That's what you want. You want just really finely ground up almonds. And we're going to add that straight to the turkey. And you could substitute walnuts if you don't have any almonds. And if you don't have any nuts, or maybe you're allergic to nuts, you could use like a panko type breadcrumb or a fresh breadcrumb. Just take a piece of bread and put it in here. You would want something to help bind it. That's the purpose of the almonds, because I'm not using any egg. Now I'm going to do my herbs first. If you don't have fresh herbs, then you by all means can use dried. I'm going to use fresh because my store actually had some and they were beautiful. And so I bought some. They were very inexpensive. And so I bought some sage. This is sage. Now I'm using fresh, so I'm using about a tablespoon, maybe even a tablespoon and a half of fresh sage that I'm going to mince up pretty fine. If you don't have fresh and you want to use dried sage, which I do use all the time, you want about 1/2 a teaspoon or so. Oh, that smells instantly like turkey. You know that definite smell that you get at Thanksgiving with your turkey? That usually comes from the sage, which is a delicious herb. And I grow that in the summertime. I grow my own herbs at home just out on my deck in regular flower pots. And I just use them all summer long. And then I dry my own. At the end of the season, when you've got more than what you've used, just cut them in bunches and hang them somewhere, kind of bind it with string, and then just hang them up and let them dry naturally, and then crumble them in your hand into a container, and you've got fresh dried herbs all winter long. There's some fresh thyme or fresh sage, and then this is thyme, little fresh thyme. And what you want to do, the stem of thyme can be tricky. Like these little stems right here are so thin and flexible, they're fine. But you see the difference? This is more of a woody stem. You don't want that. The other stem is okay to just chop up in your herb mixture, unless you have a whole lot more patience than I do, and you want to stand here and get all those little leaves off. I lack that kind of patience. Now sometimes, if the stems are bigger, I'll go ahead and take off the little leaves. But most of the time, the thinner stalk, I just chop up in my herb because I don't mind the little stems in there. Thyme is delicious, but it is a little bit tedious with your fresh. If you don't have fresh thyme, this one's a little thicker, so I'm for sure going to take all that off. You could use dried, which is fine. It dries very good, I think. And you can use about, again, a teaspoon, 1/2 teaspoon, depending on how strong you like the flavor. I happen to really like the flavor of thyme, so I put a lot in my herbs. And this is probably one of those. Thyme and rosemary, I would think, if you're going to grow your own, thyme and rosemary are the two that I certainly would start with. And you can visit any store that sells plant. You know, by the beginning of spring, little plant, very, very easy to grow yourself. This is enough. We'll save this for our eggs because we're going to use some in our eggs in a little bit. And then even though those leaves are very, very small, I still chop up. And then, you know, remember, we've got some of those little soft stem in there, and you want to chop that up. Same thing, put your knife on your board, put one hand on the end of your knife, and then just move it back and forth. You know, and I get asked a whole lot of questions, and one of the things that I really do recommend that everybody that cooks have in their kitchen is a good cutting board. This is a cutting board that I've had for years, and I love it because it's nice and thick, and I can just wash it. Don't ever put them in the dishwasher if they're wooden. Don't use meat on this one. This is strictly for vegetables and things like that, fruits and vegetables, and chopping non-meat products. The meat ones, I like those little flexible ones that you can put in the dishwasher. This is a Granny Smith apple. I do not peel my apples, but I'm just cutting out the core. If you want to peel it, you can. Yeah, you can do this two ways. Since I've got my food processor out, my little mini food processor, I'm going to chop it in the food processor because I want it to be kind of fine. Or you can grate it on the holes of a box grater. That works too. Or you can mince it very, very fine with your knife. One Granny Smith apple. This is the most time-consuming part. Once you get this part done, you're basically finished. Now, I'm going to chop it up real fine. Pulse it, and then you get those bigger chunks down in there. And sometimes, most food processors have a little safety latch to where if you take the lid off, it won't work till you lock it in place. Because you need to move those bigger chunks around. And you know, with the exception of that one big chunk, that's fine. And I'll just take that out and eat it. Now we got a couple more big chunks. Take out any big chunks down in there. And you can either mince them by hand or just leave them out. You want basically one Granny Smith apple. Again, you can peel it if you so desire. Now, we're going to mix all this up. Let me show you how. And then we're going to form it into patties, and we're going to pan fry it in a skillet. So there you go. We're going to take a quick break. I'm just going to mix this up lightly with my hands, and when I come back, we're going to get this in the skillet. Let me show you how I'm going to form them. I'm just going to take about 1/4 cup and then just patty them out just like that. And then we're going to pan fry them. I'll be back in just a minute, and we are going to make a delicious Waldorf salad. I'll be right back. Hey, and welcome back. Now, our sausage is pan frying in the skillet. We just patted them out like I showed you and put just a little bit of canola oil or vegetable oil in the bottom of the pan because that is a very lean cut of meat, ground turkey. You could use ground chicken if you wanted to. So we're just pan frying these. They need about 4 to 5 minutes on each side. So we're going to start on a salad. We're going to make a Waldorf salad, and this is where you can really put whatever kind of fruit you like in there. But for today, I've chosen some grapes that are small, and these are seedless. If you have big grapes, you would want to cut them in half, but these are very, very small. So I'm just taking them off the stem, and this is one of those salads that will stay in your refrigerator for several days. So you can make this up, and what a healthy version of Waldorf salad. Traditional Waldorf salad is a mayonnaise-based dressing, and I do that sometimes, and sometimes I'll use Greek yogurt, but this one is a little bit different. It uses apple juice. It's a looser dressing instead of a heavy-based dressing, so it's a little healthier for you, and you're getting extra fruit in your diet. And anything that will get extra fruit and vegetables in your diet, I am all about that because I find most people just simply don't eat enough fruits and vegetables. We eat a lot of protein through our meat and we eat a lot of fats, but we just do not eat enough fruits and vegetables. So anytime you can do something to get extra in your diet or your family's diet, then we need to do that. So this is just about a cup of grapes or so. I like the crunch of celery, so I'm adding a couple of stalks of celery, traditional in the Waldorf salad, that you want to mince up, or not mince up, but dice up kind of fine. If you don't like celery, you don't have to put it in there, but I love it. And so I like it in my Waldorf salad. Just cut it. This is 2 stalks in a smallish kind of dice. And just put that in there. I'm going to do the apples last. I'm going to add some oranges, just a couple of oranges that I'm going to show you how to supreme an orange, which is basically cutting it out of the membrane. I like to cut the ends off. This is how I do an orange or a grapefruit or anything like that. And then I take a little small paring knife and I cut away the pith and the rind on the outside. And I'm going to zest this one before I do it because I'm going to add that because it smells so good. This orange smells wonderful. And do it over the bowl. Get as much of that white off as you can. Do it over the bowl because you do not want to waste those juices. Now, you know how oranges have all those little membranes? Take a small sharp paring knife and go down on either side of the membrane and see what you get. You get these wonderful little pieces of orange. And then the juice is dripping down in there, and that's just going to add flavor. So this is called supreming. And I do it with my grapefruit. Every night I eat a grapefruit, just about every night. And I do that with my grapefruit. It's not hard. You just cut along that little membrane, fold it over. My turkey's smelling wonderful, but I think it's probably ready to be turned over. And I'll show you how we'll do the apple. Again, I'm using Granny Smith because that's what I have. If you use whatever kind of apple that you like, and if you wanted to substitute a grapefruit for this recipe, you could. The ruby red grapefruit are delicious. And I love them. This one's a little small in there, so I'm just going to hand peel that membrane off because I find it's easier to eat if you get rid of that membrane. Not that it'll hurt you. But I find my kids, if I do this for my children, they will eat their fruit. If I go ahead and get it prepped, ready to go, and in the refrigerator, they will eat it. And if an orange is sitting there like this, it's a little intimidating. But if you go ahead and do this, then you put it in their lunch boxes or anything. Think ahead on things like that. I'm going to take a quick little gander here at my sausage, which is smelling phenomenally good, but I think it's ready to turn over. Yeah, there we go. I'll turn my heat down just a little bit because I want to make sure to get that turkey cooked all the way through. This is not one of those meats that you can eat medium rare. You need to cook it all the way through. And I want that caramelization on that crust. That's why I'm using a stainless steel skillet, not a non-stick one. But if you want to use a non-stick, you can. And then just kind of let those do their thing. I've got an apple here, a Granny Smith apple. And I showed you one way to cut it in half, but this is another way you can get the core out. Just cut around the core, and there you go. And then you've got pieces of apple ready to go. And again, I am not peeling mine because that's where a lot of your vitamins and minerals are. I'm going to dice it in kind of a smallish dice. You want to think about the sizes of the pieces of your fruit. You want them all to be about the same. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it to be about the same size. I love a Granny Smith apple. It's very tart, and I tend to like really tart things. But if you want to use a Red Delicious or a Honey Crisp, if you've got a good Honey Crisp apple, which my children will devour, Honey Crisp, you could use those. You could use any kind of apple that you like. Just cut it in to a dice. I'm going to do 2 apples and 2 oranges. go ahead and do the other apple, and some nuts. And I am using a mixture, but you could use any kind of nut that you like, walnuts or pecans or almonds, black walnuts, which are a little stronger flavor. If you've never had a black walnut, that's actually my favorite nut. I love black walnuts, but they are a very strong flavor. Used to have 2 black walnut trees in my yard, and they died, so they were old. I bet those trees were probably 100 years old. They were old, but they gave me some beautiful black walnuts, but they're gone, so we don't have them anymore. Cut them down. Becoming one of those nuts that are hard to find, actually. Very labor intensive to gather. That's why they are a little more expensive, but they're so good. But you could use regular English walnuts, any kind of nut you like. Or again, if you're allergic to nuts and you can eat the roasted soybeans, soybeans actually would be a delicious substitute for the nuts. But here's a mixture. I've got pecans, walnuts, and almonds. And you can use whatever you have. I'm going to chop these just a little bit. I don't want them too fine, so I'm just going to take my knife and chop them, because you want the pieces, and then turn them and go the other direction. The almonds are a little harder sometimes. Those are whole almonds. But you know, nuts are one of the healthiest things that you can eat. They have fat in them, but it's a good fat. It's the healthy fat. And I tend to really kind of love nuts in anything. But if I have a bag in my refrigerator and I eat maybe an ounce of walnuts every day, just plain walnuts, just like these, just eat them. It's a great snack and so healthy and good for you. It's a heart-healthy oil. Now I'm going to do my other orange over the break, just like I did the first one. And when I come back, we're going to make some scrambled eggs and a smoothie. I'll be back in just a minute. Now our sausage is done, and I just took it out of the skillet and put it on paper towels to drain. Our fruit salad is mixed. Now let's make the dressing. In this bowl, I've got about 1/4 to 1/2 cup of apple juice. For richness, I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, about 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, some salt, and some pepper, because you do need those flavors in your dressing. Then I'm going to whisk all that together, and that's it. You see, this is more of a loose dressing. This is a very loose dressing, actually, as opposed to the mayonnaise-based dressing. But it is really good on this salad. And then just drizzle that over. And like I said, it'll keep 3 or 4 days in your refrigerator if it lasts that long. And then just toss it all together and let it set, and the flavors just blend in with that juice. The apple juice and the juice from the oranges will help the apple not to oxidize. You've got to have something in there of an acid nature to keep those apples from turning. And there you go. There's an easy, quick Waldorf salad. I'm going to let that set for just a minute, and then we'll serve it. We're going to make a smoothie real quick. And it's one of those things, and again, it's another way of getting fruits and protein in the yogurt into your diet. I have about 1.5 cups of vanilla, and I like the Greek yogurt, but you don't have to use the Greek yogurt, but I do. You can use plain, if you have plain yogurt, and then add a little bit of vanilla, but that's just the vanilla Greek yogurt. I have a couple of cups of strawberries that I've just washed and cut into smaller pieces. A cup of milk, 2% whole milk, whatever you have is fine. And then a banana that I'm going to cut into chunks and kind of give it a little bit of a head start. into the blender. 1 banana. I love bananas. They're so good, and they're so good for you. And that's it. Smoothie. And just blend it up. It's loud, so bear with me. Let it go till all the chunks and I think that's it. Yep, that's all you got to do right there. And you've got a wonderful, wonderful smoothie for your family. And then you can just pour it into your cup. Now, how easy was that? And that's a nutritious, healthy drink for you to have in the mornings. And make it pretty for your family. Just take an extra strawberry and put on there. And there you go. Now, let's make some scrambled eggs real quick. I have, in this bowl, I have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 eggs because I'm cooking for a lot of people. You use as many as you're cooking for. And a couple of tablespoons or so of some milk or half and half or something to help loosen it up. A little bit of salt. I've got a lot of eggs, so I've got about a teaspoon. Little tiny bit of black pepper. I've got in this case, I am using one of those ceramic green pans, as they call them, and I'm going to put a little butter in the bottom because I like to cook my eggs in butter. My pan is a little warm. I want to melt this butter. It doesn't take but just a minute. We've made scrambled eggs before. Let that melt, and I went ahead and chopped some fresh herbs. I chose again because I'm mirroring the flavors in my sausage, and so I've got sage and thyme, a couple of tablespoons of each because I'm using fresh. If you're using dried, you would only want maybe a teaspoon. Break your yolks, and then just mix up the herbs. Get your pan hot. When you get your eggs beaten up, come on you, just add them to the pan. Eggs are one of those things you want to do slowly. Oops, made a mess. That's okay. And then just immediately start scrambling the egg in the pan. Now this is not a non-stick skillet, it won't scratch, but I like these little rubber spatula type things. And depending on how well done you like it, doesn't that look pretty though with all those herbs? You could use parsley, you could use rosemary, you can use any kind of herb that you like. Tarragon, actually, fresh tarragon, if you can grow it or find it, is absolutely scrumptious in eggs. It's got almost a licorice-y type flavor. It tastes like anise, which is a licorice flavor. Fennel, think of fennel. It's kind of that flavor. It's delicious. So we're going to scramble our eggs. Let's let those kind of do their thing for a minute. Let's put some of our wonderful salad on our plate. Delicious and healthy. Look at what a plate of food right there. So good. You could add strawberries to it. Blackberries would be delicious in there. If you wanted to, you could add some little mini marshmallows, would be fine. Our eggs are just going to scramble away. All right, now our eggs are done. They're softly scrambled. I don't like them runny for myself. Some people do, but I like my eggs to be a little more done than that. And look how pretty and good those are. And we're going to add them to our wonderful breakfast plate. All right, great. Get back over there. And there you go, a delicious, healthy meal, breakfast, lunch, or dinner for your family. We made some soft scrambled eggs with fresh herbs. We made a wonderful new Waldorf salad, a homemade turkey apple sausage, and a delicious banana strawberry smoothie. Try these recipes and let me know what you think about them. And we will see you next time on Everyday Manna.
So what's the empty suitcase for?
The grand prize trophy. Confidence. Pass it on. I was born to be somebody.
Another summer day has come and gone away. From Paris and Rome, but I wanna go home. Oh, I miss you, you know. Let me go home. It'll all be alright. I'll be home tonight. I'm coming back home. Baby, tell me, where'd you ever learn to fight without saying a word? Then walks back into my life like it's all gonna be alright. Don't you know how much it hurts?